Om Shanti, good evening and welcome to Interview with a Raj Yogi. And we're going to start with a reflection. Sitting comfortably, eyes can be open, but in a natural way. It's very nice at the end of the day to take a moment to be quiet. Our days are often filled with lots of activity, thoughts and words and actions. Can almost be the feeling inside of racing against time. So it's nice at the end of the day to realize I did the best I could, and the best use of my time now is to let the day go. Preparing for the next day by recharging. The more I let go, the more I recharge. There is a stock of peace inside every human soul. And when I release the day, I create an opportunity, an opening for that stock of peace to bubble up and emerge in my own mind. Feelings of peace start to fill the open spaces of the mind that were previously cluttered with all the thoughts of the day. And through that experience of peace from within, I feel restored. Om Shanti. So once again, a welcome to anyone who's joined. And although we have questions that Nora will ask, we also welcome your questions. So if there's anything that you want to ask, all you have to do is type it, in the chat box on YouTube, and we will do our best to address. So let's see what questions there are today.
Good evening. I hope those on live stream can hear. And good evening to Judy.
Good evening.
It was a beautiful meditation experience. And some things came up from that as well. But you touched on it a bit with the reflection, actually. Why is it important to let go? And how does one let go in a non-violent way?
Experience today was about child's pose, balasana, and looking at the spiritual significance of it. And usually what happens in yoga, physical hatha yoga class, is souls are going through the postures and they're invited at any time if they start to feel pain, especially in their shoulders, backs, the joints, that they should go into child's pose, because child's pose is a pose of release. So when we're feeling pain, it's usually a sign that we're actually kind of going into bondage or restricting, becoming tight. We're not using something properly and we're pushing in this inaccurate way. And so rather than try harder and harder, the best thing to do is reset, to release. The pain's a very loyal signal that it's time to let go. So it's super important to let go or release because we're feeling pain. And that's usually when we want to let go. It's said that we call out to God for centuries and so many lives, and he just takes his own sweet time showing up, because he won't come until we're at quite extreme pain. That is the time that we will let go and stop doing what we're doing to reset and be more accurate. So it's sadly connected to pain, but it gives a very benevolent sort of feeling about pain, that pain is an indicator that I'm not doing something accurate. I don't want to just keep pushing. That's actually violent. The letting go is the non-violent piece. So if it's feeling violent, then it probably means I'm not ready to let go. And I'm trying to do what I should, but I'm not ready to let go. So, this idea that God has to come quite late, we think quite late in the game. And he says, no, I'd come sooner if I could, but you've still got things apparently you need to do. so it's only when the pain is extreme and I'm just too tired to hold on anymore that I go into, and people love child's pose. Even the one where the arms are stretched out, I don't even find that. I like my arms back by my heel. I want a total release. It's so, you have no idea how good it is for the lower back. And the spine is such a part of staying upright. So if we're not using it properly, the whole frame is a disaster. And that's really the same in spirituality. We're not using our consciousness properly, and we're pushing really hard, and we're already violent. Is it extreme enough that I am ready to, we say let go, but it really means reset, to try something new. So there's I guess, a timing to it so that it's not violent. Mm-hmm.
When you were suggesting about the back,
Mm-hmm.
and the child's pose is a state in which you're trying to release something, physically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And you were sharing about, spiritually speaking, that whatever kind of pain, stress, heaviness, sorrow, peacelessness, the sign we're not using our consciousness properly. And in both scenarios, there's an implication that there's a proper alignment. So, in that case, what is that relationship then of being able to know what my real alignment is and being able to let go?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel that a lot of the questions that come up in the courses,
Mm-hmm.
even students, is that they're still trying to let go
Mm-hmm.
and not even realizing that there is that force,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps not even be able to grasp on an experiential level at the time of need, let alone all the time, but at the time of need of this alignment that's required.
Mm-hmm. It's a very ironic thing, actually. So, two parts. First off, both child's pose and happy baby's pose are
Happy
released.
baby's pose. I
Yeah.
don't even know what the happy
Oh,
baby's
it's
pose is.
wonderful. Both of them are releases for really the foundation of the skeletal frame, the whole pelvic area. So, they both, of course, are reminiscent of, this is the physical example, and I don't want to distract too much, but of what we see infants do. So I'm sure we've all had that wonderful, sweet image, of the crib and the baby's in the crib and child pose, just kind of this sack of potatoes, kind of just in a little fetal structure. And of course, babies on their back, holding on to their feet, happy baby pose. These are both poses that come very naturally to infants, and infants at that time, our physical alignment, if you want to even use the words, is very pure. We have a very pure use, unless, of course, there's some congenital issue or anything, but in obviously a normal situation, um, it's very natural, um, how the frame is, how the skeleton's used, and they instinctively go into these postures. And so, what the idea being that there is a memory inside of each of us physically. There is a memory and intuition, if you will, instinct inside each of us of what physical recovery would be like. So the same applies spiritually. So when souls come, I find it very ironic, because souls come to learn to meditate, and they have it in their minds that meditation is about emptying the mind, isolation. And then they say it's difficult to let go, but their concept of meditation is all about letting go. So it's really fascinating. And what we begin to discover is that these other methods of letting go are distraction. They're not letting go, they're distraction. Whereas, or even escape. Whereas we're talking about a letting go, which is remembering. Just like the letting go postures, child pose, happy baby, is reminiscent of those infant postures, right? That instinct or that pull, that memory inside each of us to go into those kinds of postures as a release. There is a memory, a spiritual memory inside each of us of a very pure alignment, a pure posture that's very restorative. it is a release. It happens to be release because that pure posture is very light and easy and nonviolent. But rather than focusing on the letting go, we focus on the remembering, which includes a letting go. It's a release to remember I am a soul. There is a release of this other sort of illusion or framework I had based my life on. But the main thing is I'm going into that memory of being a soul.
You might have to clarify a bit more what it means, letting go versus distractions, because some will find I'll go to a beautiful place. Ooh, it's nice there. I have listened to beautiful music. It's nice. And I don't know if individuals actually maybe even had a chance to reflect on, am I just distracting myself versus letting go? Because that's, especially if letting go is such an important piece for something to change inside.
I always have a lot of faith in the human spirit. And I think what's happening is almost due to, and it's not to insult anyone, it's happened to all of us, a weakness. We rely a lot on facilities to activate a capacity inside. So I look to the mountains to feel this natural capacity I have for peace, but I'm using an external facility to make it happen. I just don't have the power to master the self, to make it happen internally. And so we have this capacity to feel these things. I just want to transfer it from external triggers to internal mastery, using knowledge, using truth to activate those natural capacities inside so that I'm not, if you will, distracted or escaping to some sort of external facility, but I'm actually remembering.
It's actually interesting you mentioned because it segues really nicely to the next question I had, actually. It's about knowledge. What's that relationship between knowledge and truth? Especially when we have varying perceptions of truth, your truth, my truth. Everybody has their truth. And so, what is that? The difference between knowledge, or what does knowledge, the role it plays in terms of truth?
And I think first we always have to clarify here in this context, we're talking about spiritual knowledge because there's lots of information in the world. And we always check, is it useful or relevant to address the situation at hand? We can just collect information for information's sake. But there's certain, I think, understandings we have regarding truth, defining features of truth, that it's absolute, that it's eternal. So to differentiate between opinions and truth, we all have different opinions and interpretations, and then there's the truth. And I always, these kinds of questions, I always am reminded of drawing class.
It's a good example.
And I know you've heard it many times. So you can have a nap, Nora. But this idea that we be in a circle, and I found it fascinating from an existential perspective. The model was in the center, and we'd be asked each to draw, and we're all actually sitting in different places relative to the model. So already there, it's already set up for different. But beyond that, I knew, I'd always ask, am I really seeing? Am I really seeing what's there? How many filters are there that I'm missing things, and eyewitness testimony, all of this becomes suspect because of these filters. And so then you all draw your thing. And yes, I expect differences based on perspective. But even if I put all of the pictures together, they're not going to equal one person. They're going to equal, however,
like a Picasso.
it's going to look like a Picasso. And I found that fascinating, because I knew that there was an absolute in the middle of the room. And yet we each had an interpretation, and we each really felt strongly, this is what I'm seeing. Even if it's abstract, this is what I'm seeing. And so a huge part of spiritually of letting go again is cleaning, 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 so that almost a humbling experience, quite frankly. The most successful students of spiritual knowledge, truth, are those that are humble, that can really come to it almost with, I don't know, but I have the capacity to know. So it's not to undermine faith in the self, but it is to appreciate that I've got my own ideas and filters and biases and stuff in here, and they actually might get in the way of me experiencing the truth. So I need to, out of deep interest, to know the truth, to see that I'm I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go. And I don't even know half the time what I'm letting go of because, to be honest with you, most of us are being driven by ideas and beliefs that we are not even consciously aware of. So it's a very fascinating journey to be able to see things in such a clean way. And I challenge you, this is the soul looking. This is a gross example of the physical. Once we start to get into ideas and concepts, it gets very interesting. But I challenge you even to you, the soul, to go and look in the mirror at the physical form of the body you're in and to really ask yourself, am I seeing it as it is? I don't know. You probably focus on that big, freckle over there, or whatever the case may be. And so to have that clarity is quite good fortune.
I'm not sure if there are those on live stream, but feel free to enter your questions in the chat box. We are keeping an eye on that. So, with your experience, would you say that letting go feels more refined, feels more that it changes or matures with a deeper sense of understanding of yourself? Because when someone is in pain, it could be physical pain, but let's say in this sense, spiritual pain, a sense of longing, a sense of seeking. They don't even know what they're looking for and they don't even know themselves. But at the same time, that pain probably forces them to let go unknowingly. And so, your journey being in Raja Yoga, do you find that the more you discover yourself, understand yourself, that letting go feels different, or what is that journey like for you?
So when it comes to spirituality, this idea of letting go, we refer to it as purification, that I'm letting go of what is an illusion or what's not me. So it's like cleaning the self. And I think we all know the different stages that cleaning can go through, right? I walk into a room and the first level of cleaning can be on a very gross, I just throw out the garbage or empty boxes or tidy up a little bit, and that's okay. And then maybe starts to get a little deeper. Oh, I notice dust on things, so I start to dust things away, and by the end, it's microscopic. You've got the Q-tips out,
I
right?
was just about to
Yeah.
say Judy and Q-tips.
You've got the Q-tips out, and you're just, into the minutia at that point, because you want to get the cleaning on such a deep level. And I definitely think that's the phases that one hopefully goes through, and there's no end to it. And yes, it is, as you said, very connected to the more I get to know myself, what is me and what is not me. And with that as well, the closer I can get to the purifier, the Supreme Soul, and get to know that being, both of those create a sensitivity inside of me to want things cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. Some are content with throwing the garbage out and I'm done. There's still dirty dishes under the bed and the whole thing, but if
Under
I
the bed.
under the bed, but if I am changing and my sensitivities to cleanliness are changing, or if you don't like the word cleanliness or pure authenticity, if that's getting stronger and stronger, you just really just want to clean and get closer and closer to that truth, which is very the truth about the self, the truth about my spiritual father. And that just, you just don't want the not me, the inauthentic, to continue. So,
It feels very hopeful then for humanity to feel that we have this inner radar to want to become ourselves again. I think perhaps maybe we have some pretty gloomy perceptions of our own journey that many feel that it's not possible to return back to our sense of self again. So one of the, it's lovely, it all just seems to flow together because one of the things that came up in the meditation, which I've been thinking about as well, is we're sharing about the Supreme Soul. So some call him God. This is our spiritual parent. He serves as a mother. And I was thinking about, there's a phrase that's used and that we often share about in Raj Yoga, that purity is the mother of all virtues. And are you able to share a bit? What does that mean? Purity is the mother of all virtues.
I think for me, it comes back again to the faith and the human spirit. And again, some might disagree. I know that this can often start to tread into deep religious feelings, but our feeling in the practice of Raj Yoga is that the soul is intrinsically good. And we often talk about the greatness of the human spirit. So I think people believe that the soul is actually, the spirit is actually has wonderful capacities inside that unfortunately only seem to come out now hit and miss, or under in crisis or whatever. Even if we look at the current situation, so many stories of people doing remarkable and kind things. Someone was telling me the other day that here in the city of Calgary, um, with the homeless, so the virus can obviously spread quite easily in that population. And part of it is having to be isolated, but they have no resources to isolate. And so that someone who, a hotel that's staying anonymous, has chosen to, is providing house accommodation and food for homeless if they need to isolate. So we have these kinds of stories. We are capable of such kindness and such sweetness and such goodness. And so we say the greatness of the human spirit. So even if someone's going to challenge me, we're not innately good. We have original sin. I'm going to challenge back by this phrase we have. And that, so this is kind of a main foundational belief in Raj Yoga, that we as human beings, the human spirit, I, the soul, we are innately good or pure. So this purity, to reach this goodness, is really going to be a simple process of letting go, which is what is not innate, what is learned. And that's kind of why we say purity is the mother. Purity includes this detachment or this cleaning or letting go. It is through this letting go that what is already innately there emerges. So I have a lot of faith. So if we can create those kinds of atmospheres for each other where souls feel safe in our company, they don't feel that they need to put on a show, or they kind of feel they can let go. It's a very maternal thing. They can kind of let go. We're actually providing a context where their innate goodness can come out. So I think this is purity, is releasing what is not me, that cleaning, but it's a mother too in the sense that it nurtures what is innately there.
I think that that really helps to create a bridge of what purity means. I feel that souls, when they hear that word, certainly it's an extremely loaded term. But when you were sharing about these feelings, and maybe that's where it becomes a bridge for souls to understand a sense of safety, a sense of nurturing, a sense of acceptance. Um, and that's what I found. I was quite touched with the experience of meditation earlier too, about the role that Supreme Soul plays to that kind of vibration that this being actually just emanates very naturally, that we become colored by it too. And so that's why I was thinking about, let's, this heavy loaded term purity, but just the nurturing of something that's innate. And we kind of put that aside. We want a good character. We want to, have a certain sense of self transformation, but perhaps maybe many stumble on grasping what purity means,
Mm-hmm.
probably because of some baggage, that the feeling of that baggage overrides them being able to really accept really what it is, because it's
Mm-hmm.
very much connected to letting go, to know who I really am. And it's faith, that there's a deep knowing inside that there's more to me than my mistakes and things out there. And so I think that sometimes we get quite caught up in trying to change without really
Mm-hmm.
understanding what purity is.
There was a very nice sharing tonight in another class, but um, this idea that souls perhaps have a bittersweet relationship, a pull push relationship with purity, because I think if we're honest, we have that understanding that as an infant, because we were infants, we had that innocence, and then we talk about loss of innocence. Um, so this adulterated state as adults that we enter, and that sort of pull to purity. But there is a block, if you will, which we sometimes call unworthiness or just feeling bad. So every time I go to that purity, it brings up that feeling of losing it, of dishonoring the self. And it's difficult when you're trying to go towards something, but every time you do, this sort of bitter taste comes with it. And so that's what we use knowledge, spiritual understanding for, is to neutralize that bitter taste, to understand why I lost the innocence, that it wasn't anyone's fault, no one's bad. And if I can neutralize that, then I'm free to move towards what I want to move towards, which is purity.
It feels like it goes full circle to the use and importance of knowledge, because how easily that all these questions are all connected together that I
Mm.
had, because it was about knowledge, and some find it, and it's connected to the last few sessions as well, in terms of being able to move from the theoretical to the practical. Because from what you're sharing, to be able to become one who is back to oneself again, they have that quality, that pure quality, that innate quality, that vibration itself kind of feels like it's sort of like the final product of having munched on this knowledge. And what has your journey been like in terms of being able to meaningfully take in this knowledge so that it actually changes it? Because I think many just struggle with just thinking about it. Let's say I'm a soul, or that we're actors in the play. Um, and there's always good in the next situation, but it doesn't really translate in the sense of the change in feelings. What is your personal experience like through these years?
I'm going to sort of answer your question, but not use me, because the impression that's sitting with me now, we talked just a little while ago, this beautiful class on Mama, who was, we say, the number 2 student of the Brahma Kumaris. Brahma was number 1, Mama was number 2, very close though. And of course, we're talking about Mother so much, and that she has such an understanding of knowledge, and she made it practical. She digested it and embodied it and was so stable. And as a result, there was very quickly that very sweet innocence, purity, emerged, she changed very, but it was married to a wisdom. So it's like a great leader who is also very pure and sweet, a beautiful balance. And the story that, in terms of that, deeply, deeply taking the knowledge in, this final story that was shared, she left the body in her mid 40s due to cancer, which is quite a painful. This was in 1960s India, so it would have been physically painful. But there was the soul who was telling the story was with Mama, and they would often ask her. There came a point when the doctor said there's nothing more they can do and that she's going to leave the body, and so just a few days, and she's aware of it. Mama's aware of this, and yet her face was very cheerful and light. And the day that she left the body, she gave what we call toli. She gave grapes and banana to all the souls there, and took a couple of hours, I believe, and then later in the day she left the body, which is a remarkable thing. You have cancer, and the whole thing is incredible. But they would ask her in the days leading up, because she's aware she's going to leave the body, and they'd ask her in the days leading up, what are you thinking? Given what's about to happen, what are you thinking? And she'd always just respond with complete knowledge. It's drama. Drama's benevolent. It's drama. And it wasn't, at that point, it's not theory. I mean, you're about to leave the body. You're not just saying something, it's like, and it was such a reality for her. I don't even think reality, it was, we say royalty, but it was personality. She embodied it to the point where she didn't feel things the way someone else might. When it gets to the emotional or feeling state, you know that you are changed, and even not even feeling the pain, really. So I think, that to me is such a example. If I was to say personally, we all, she was very stable. I don't know if we're always stable, but when all the planets line up, um, it is a very light and peaceful feeling, whatever is going on. It's a royalty. You feel, I think we all want that hunger for that royal sense of self, to not be reactive, to not be affected, to not be influenced, to not get ugly, to show up in our highest potential. And when all the planets line up, we kind of get to taste that, and to imagine living that way 24/7, to be completely transformed or purified, is constantly, that's the carrot that's dangling in front of us as students of Raj Yoga. Is, I don't think there's any greater attainment on the planet than fully being oneself. So, and if knowledge can create that, then
I feel that's a beautiful definition of what purity is, to fully be oneself. And certainly, for many, it's just that transition, the journey of feeling it. It's a very beautiful feeling. I feel that we are coming close to the end of our session. I think that it would be lovely to have a little reflection.
All right, we'll have a minute of reflection. Times when I'm seated like this quietly, completely with myself, all the attention on myself, I can let go of the ordinary, day to day, all the details, and move into an almost sacred space, as if there is a temple inside, a place for sacred experiences, a place where I can go to awaken ancient memories, remember. And the most rewarding, satisfying, fulfilling experience to have in that sacred space inside is to remember my original pure state, my intrinsic goodness as a soul in my pure state. I am peaceful and loveful and truthful and full of lightness. All the details of life can be swirling around, things outside changing, but when I am pure, I am constantly in this state, responding to everything, everyone in such a peaceful and loveful way, moving on this earth in such a sacred way that honors the best in myself. Om Shanti.
A warm thank you for being ever ready for whatever mysterious questions come up.
They were good questions.
Well, it was a lovely meditation earlier too, so it provoked some thought as well. Beautiful experience. So a warm reminder, we have Thursday experience at 6:45 to 7:30, followed by 7:35 Raja Yoga Essentials. And then the next session would be on Saturday, which would be the experience at 1 o'clock, and followed by Inner Fitness. I regret I don't know what the topic is.
Self-correction, I
Self-correction,
believe.
yes, a beautiful one. And a reminder for those, if it pulls you, there is the Hindi Raja Yoga, the 7-day session.
There's a lot going on. There's Hindi meditation Thursday night,
Yes,
6 to
yes.
7. And yes, every day they're having, I think it's 8 o'clock.
It starts on Sunday, I believe.
Yeah.
But please visit the website before we give you the wrong information.
I think it's underway, actually.
Oh, it is already. I might be giving the wrong information already. So I'm going to slip quietly away from now. Thank you for joining us.
Hey